This is the Zoom lecture for heavy civil construction, Thursday night, April 30th, 6:30 p.m. And we talked about going to the main page of Vanco Hall. This is where I send you all those news forums. Hopefully you've got the one that I sent this afternoon. Of course you did, because you're now joining me on Zoom. But there's also some updates on homework that we'll talk about later on in the program. Within Vanco Hall, in that main cover sheet, some of the soils information is in this folder. Like the ET Geotech case study is in there. The site eval, we're going to use this next week. Site evaluation case study, DIA, Denver International Airport, or do it again, as the joke goes. The soils flow chart was in there, okay? Now, so we're going to, you've had to use those handouts from time to time. And also within Vanco, if you scroll down to the most recent week or two, here's another soils lab for the some of the more specific homeworks that we're dealing with. Up here was just some of the reading that we wanted you to do. So within this, you had the handout, which we're going to go over in a minute, the Civ Classify handout, and then the Excel. So this Excel, you want to get familiar with, and I just updated it. This is the example that we're going to talk a little bit more about tonight. This is the homework that was due at 2 p.m. today. I decided to move it to 11:59 tonight, and I'm going to move it to 11:59 tomorrow night after we talk about it. So this was the template that you're going to use. This you can use for soil A. This is another template. So you're going to be able to get all the right answers. You just got to burp in the data. So that is in this folder for the soil labs. And again, that is the week of 27 April to 3 May. The geotech case study, you should have read the note on that. Let's just say that the number of submissions was disappointing, and we'll leave it at that. So what I did, and you can decide why you think I did it, that is now worth 5 points instead of 20. For those of you who got 20 in the grade sheet on Vanco, and Vanco grades are only used for that specific homework. It is not used for the entire grade. I do that on a separate Excel. I'm going to try to update that on Sunday, and I'll enter the exam grades and all of the homeworks to date. So that geotech page 8 is now worth 5 points. If you didn't do it, you lose 5 points. That's a message from me to you. You figure out what the message is. That's a sincere statement. If you got anywhere from a 0 to 4, that means you were anywhere from 20 minutes late to 6 hours late. So you lose a couple of points. Hopefully you're getting the message. If those of you handed in on time, and I think everybody who did a good job, got 20 out of 20, you get 5 points for the homework. And since we had snow 2 days this week, Santa Claus is going to give you 15 points for extra credit. So there's the message for you, as well as a message for everybody else. I think I've made myself clear. What I do want to talk about as we go over the homework tonight, you've got to be upfront with me as to what time frames work and what don't. That's up to you. I'll work with you, but you got to help me on that. So that is what I did. There will be no more discussion on this. The only thing I will discuss is no more word processing. You do word processing, you'll start out at best half credit, and then eventually you'll go to 0 credit. You got to write everything down by hand. Okay, there's the answer key for geotech. This is the drop box for soil A. That will be changed to tomorrow night instead of tonight at 11:59. Tell you what, I'm going to change it right now. If I can get past this little note here. So we're going to turn the editing on. And let's just change this to, where the hell's that Dropbox? New time, edit settings. So tomorrow night, Friday. So that will be, oh my, finally May. We'll get into good weather, right? Yeah. May 1st, 11:59. Everybody okay with that?
Yes, thank you.
I'll go over any questions that you have on that in a little bit. So now the due date, I got to change that. And so the due date is now Friday, 23:59. It's going to cut off at the same time, and it is being cut off at that time. If it's not in, it's not in. So, save and return the course. Okay. Remind me grade, yeah. I gotta change this. Oh, I didn't do that. Okay. How's that? Basically, Vanco Hall is telling me to go to hell. There we go. Let's see if that works. There we go. Okay. Now, let's go back to the Excel, which is the soil student copy. And we're going over this one. Okay? This example. And I think what I know what I'm going to do is tonight, I'm going to make a copy of this along with this is soil B, along with this graph and the classification information that we're going to go over tonight. So that way you have you've got an example of everything that you need for soil, this is soil B, for soil A. Okay, this is the one that is now due tomorrow night. And then soil B is due Sunday night at 11:59. All you got to do for soil A and soil B is do the data sheet by hand. Use the Excel to make sure you have the correct answer. And then you're going to show all the calcs for the number 4 and the number 200 sieves. You do not have to classify it, which is what we're going to learn something new tonight. So again, data sheet, curve. Don't worry about all this. Just do what I'm going to show you on this example. What we learned tonight on classification, eventually you will do for soil A and soil B, but that'll be due sometime next week. I want to talk a little bit more about that Monday night after surveying. Okay? Make sure I'm still recording. Good. So, if we went back to this soil manual, it talked about grain size distribution, which is the sieve test. Also, the test used to differentiate between silts and clays is called the hydrometer. We just talk about that and show you, but we don't do it. So all of that data that you see, right? All of this data is from this sieve test. And what it does is when we graph column 7 versus the sieve size, right here, that's going to give us what's known as a gradation curve. Okay. Now, this one is going small sieve left to right. Ours goes big sieve left to right. So it's going to be a mirror image. Your curve is going to be a mirror image of what's in this little manual. And so they talk about soil A, B, C, and D, so you can read that again. And the whole reason we do that is to classify it. And this chart right here is an easy chart versus this one, which is on the actually, I don't think it was there. It was all the way at the top under the soils info. Okay. Hey, do me a favor, will you? Stop doing that. So, let's go back to this. So in that online information, we've got gravels, sands, silts and clays, okay? We are not dealing with highly organic soils. So these group symbols are what we're going to try to figure out tonight. Now G, let's see here, on this handout, and I got to find that handout. Geotech. So let's go back down to here and make sure I know I just saw it. Yeah, this handout right here is this handout right here. So right here, G is for gravel. So the first letter is the main group, if you will. S is for sand. C is for clay. So all of that pretty much makes sense. And silt, for some reason, is M. So the first letter in these group symbols deals with the main part, the main component of that soil sample, because the samples literally are a combination of all of these soil, all of these different types of soil. So this is very difficult to use, this chart right here. It's the USC, Unified Soil Classification System. The AASHTO, American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, roadways. So this is for roadways. And then this is what I made for you, and this is on your Excel. So what this is the USC soil classification, and it's a step-by-step on using this sheet right here. So let's go to the Excel, and it's the student copy. And this example right here, you have this with all the numbers, right? You now know how we came about this. And column 7 is the important one. It's the percent passing. It's how you do the curve. And again, I'm going to send you an example using these numbers on the calcs for number 4 sieve, the calcs for 200, the graph, and the classification. The classification is not due probably until next week. I want to go one step at a time. These are all set up, again, for you to put in that data. So this right here, let's see, so I'm gonna put this directly underneath here. See if this will work. It might not. I might have to go back and forth. So let's copy this. Nice. Good. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the numbers from this example, and I'm going to show you how to classify it. So, and literally, they're just steps, one step at a time. Everything is a pattern in what I do. So, step 1 to classify. This is to classify soils. Eventually, the project specifications will determine what type of soil symbol is allowed for that project. So step 1, the percent minus the number 200. Percent minus equals percent passing. Percent, and there's percent minus equals percent passing. Percent plus equals percent retained, but we always use percent passing, which is column number 7. So the first thing we want to see is this is going to be the percent minus the 200 sieve. So let's just use our Excel. And our percent passing the 200 sieve is 0.5%. Now, that 0.5%, is it greater than 50 or less than 50? Bueller?
It's spot on 50.
Nope. 5%.
Oh, point. Less than.
That's why Mr. H has always told me, put a 0 when you have a something less than 1, whether it's a number or a percent. Always put the 0 in it, because that reminds you that it's 0.5%. So is that less than 50 or greater than 50? Well, obviously it's less than 50. So we are a coarse-grained soil. Right? That's less than 50%. So now you're going to use this entire chart on the right. You're going to block out this entire chart on the left. Okay. Right. So once you decide whether it's less than 50 or greater than 50, that'll determine the left-hand side or the right-hand side. Now, the left-hand side is fine-grained soils, either silts or clays. You with me on that? Any questions? Okay. So that says that it is either a gravel or a sand. Predominantly, don't forget that even gravels have sands particles, silt particles, and clay, possible clay particles. You're going to start with the right side of the USC chart. It eliminates the left side of the USC chart. And if you flip this, which we can, because this is America, you can do shit like that. So if you flip that, we're now using the right side of the chart and we're eliminating the left side. It is not mostly silt and clays. Now, if you'll notice that, well, this silt and clay is the same as this silt and clay with the exception of what they call the liquid limit. And that was the Norwegian mudslide that we showed you on YouTube. In other words, that's the water content of the soil that makes it flow like lava. So this is known as a fat clay, or sometimes in Louisiana they call it gumbo, much like a soup. So we're just going to deal with either sands or gravels. Right? Gravels, sands. Right? Coarse grained soils, more than 50% is larger than the number 200 sieve, which is also saying the percent minus the 200 sieve is less than 50. And then fine grained soils. So this is much easier to read than this. And then we go back to the Excel. If I can find the damn thing, here it is. So step 2 for coarse grained soils is we got to figure out the which sieve. Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? What's step 2? Number 37. Is number 37 there?
I'm not 37, but isn't it the number 4 sieve?
Yeah, you're literally reading off this chart. Okay, so that we're going to say equals whatever the number 4 sieve is. And that's 89.8. Now, is 89.8% greater than 50? Damn right it is. If it were less than 50, it would have been mostly a gravel. But this is greater than 50%. You're going right by this checklist. The percent minus, the percent passing, the number 4 sieve is greater than or equal to 50. It's mostly a sand. So now we have further isolated our soil, right? We got rid of this first, and then because the percent minus the number 4 sieve was greater than 50, we're either one of these 4 group symbols. We've eliminated gravel. Does that mean there's no gravel in this soil sample? No, there is gravel, but it's mostly sand. And sand, let's go through that again. A boulder is retained by the 12-inch sieve. Cobble goes through a 12-inch sieve, passes a 12-inch sieve, but is retained by a 3-inch sieve. A gravel, a soil gravel particle, goes through a 3-inch sieve, but is retained by the number 4 sieve. A sand goes through the number 4 sieve, but is retained by the 200 sieve. And silts and clays, they'll burp right through the number 200 sieve. And you got to use the hydrometer and the Atterberg limits, a plasticity test and a liquid limit test to decide between silts and clays. Okay. And again, up here, we've now isolated it to, right, sands. So it's either SW, SP, SM, or SC. And because we're not going to college in person, that's about as far as we're going to go. Now, on an exam, let's go back to the chart, because on an exam, that's not it. On an exam, I'm going to have you go one step further. So let's go, let's put this in yellow. Or actually, maybe what we'll do, put it in green. That means go. Okay. How can we narrow our symbol choices? Because we're SW, SP, SM, SC. And W and P is a well-graded sand and a poorly graded sand. We call that gap graded in one of the charts, one of the curves the other day, which means that there's not a lot of soil in one or more of the sieves. SM is a silty sand. M is for silt. SC is a clay sand. It's mostly sand, but it's got some clay. So step 3, for both sands or gravels, go back to the number 200 sieve. So we're going back to the number 200 sieve. And that was 0.5%. Now what you got to do is that greater than 12? Is it less than 5? Or is it between 5 and 12? You want to learn how to use this for the exam because you're going to have to classify a soil. So it's 0.5% greater than 5. Then it would be SMSC. Not GM or GC, because we've already eliminated the gravel up at this step. If it's less than 5, it's a well-graded sand or a poorly graded sand. If it's between the two, it's what they call a dual symbol. So right here, it is less than 5%. So it is, for us, it's either SW or SP. Okay, and, oh, that won't let me, let's see it. I want to get a bold here. There you go. Now, to further narrow it between either SW or SP, if it's SW, look for any mention of a well-graded soil. If it's SP, look for any mention of a poorly graded soil. In other words, on the test, you may get down to this point, you're not sure, is it SW or SP? Within the test question, look for any mention of well or poorly graded. Now, let's say it was an SM or SC, right? Down here, silts are typically non-plastic. In other words, they don't act like Play-Doh. They can on occasion, but clay are always typically plastic, like Play-Doh, like the stuff that you used. An example of a dual symbol, again, for our sand, it could be SWSC, a well-graded sand, but it's got a fair amount of soil. Okay. So that's walking you through the this checklist, okay? And what you want to do eventually is for each of the two homeworks, soil A and soil B, if I can find them here. So for soil A, right, an assignment next week, it'll be assigned Monday night, will be to classify soil A and classify soil B. Okay, soil A and soil B. So let's But what's due tomorrow night? Again, for soil A, you got to fill all this in by hand. If you want any credit, you got to do it by hand. Please use the Excel to get yourself correct answers. And then you're going to graph it. You're going to graph column 7 versus the sieve size. Okay. Now, I think I got a Word doc with the, yeah, here we go. So let's do another example of that curve. I did one on the board, but let's Control C. And Control V. And oh, it's giving me fits here. Love the undo button. Okay. So let's go to layout, orientation, landscape. And let's go down to here. So we're going to go over this chart again. There we go. So let's do the graph again for that example. So we knew that for the 2-inch sieve, the 1-inch sieve, and the 1/2-inch sieve, the percent passing was 100% for each. In other words, all the sample went through those sieve sizes, 2, 1, and 1/2. The quarter was about 97%. So if we want to insert some shapes, and let's use a star. So the first star at 2-inch, see if, whoops, that's a little big, isn't it? Let's do that. So for the 2-inch, it was at 0. Well, let's undo and let's find a different type of shape. Let's insert. These shapes are too damn big, but so right there, that was now let me try something again here. We got to find something that works. Shapes. Let's go back to the star. Let's make these big stars. And then we also had for the 1-inch, the same thing. And then the 1/2-inch, the same thing. Okay. So that's our data point. For the number 4, I'm sorry, the 1/4 inch, that was about 97%. Let's go to the number 4. That was about 90%. The number 4 sieve had about 90% of the sample went through it. What they call cumulative. So if we go back to the chart, there's the number 4 sieve. And there's the data point. Number 4 sieve, 90% passed it. The next one is the number 10 sieve. If you go back to the number 10 sieve, that's all the way to a little over 50, 52.7%. In other words, if it's 100 pounds of sample, 52.7 pounds went through the number sieve, number 10 sieve. So we'll go back to the Word doc. And there's the number 10 sieve. And so we're going to go with these. Is this making a little more sense than the other night? So that's a little over 50%. So basically, there's your X and there's your Y. This is percent passing by weight, which is column 7. These are the standard sieve openings in inches until it gets to that 3 right there. And then that's number 3 down to number 200. The next one is the number 20 sieve. And all of this is what you're going to see after I work on it when we're done as an example. So for the number 20 sieve, that's 26.5%. Number 20 sieve, right? So there's 26. There's the 20 sieve. There's the data point. Number 40 sieve. Again, column 7, 13.1% passed the number 40 sieve. There's the number 40 sieve right there. What was the percent? I forgot it already. What was it?
13.1.
Thank you. So there's 40. There's about 13.1. It's a little rough there, but that's what it is. The next one is the 100 sieve. 1.8%. We'll call it around 2%. It's damn close to 0. Okay. I talked to some folks in industry, and construction is going to start ramping up even more in New York around May 15th. Construction and manufacturing, they're going to allow more construction to happen, I believe. So that's good news for you folks. I don't know if they're going to be hiring, but you never know. So just keep plugging any contacts that you may have. Whoops. Oh, the old undo button. So that's 100 sieve is around 2%. And then I remember that the 200 sieve was about 0.5%. So there's your data points. Now what do? That's the fun part. You connect the dots. And let's go with this. And I'm just going to format this line here. So let's do that. Let's do weight. Okay. And there's your curve. Damn you. Let's see. Undo. And so this is what you're going to do for soil A that is due tomorrow night. And then for soil B that is due Sunday night. As always, I will post this Zoom to YouTube. And there it is. So there's your grain size curve. Which is that. Again, ours is a mirror image of theirs. They're starting with the very small, fine particles left to right. We start with the boulders left to right. Okay. And then we classify it. Then we go to the specifications. And do the specifications allow us to use the soil that we have classified? Okay. And then eventually, what we're going to start getting into next week is once we have a soil that can be used, it's allowed by the specifications after we do a sieve test and we classify it, then how do we compact it? Okay. And this is where you want to go back to this handout, and it talks about the soil compaction. And there, I'm going to give you a YouTube. I haven't posted it yet. I'll post it tonight. I'm going to give you a YouTube that I want you to watch for Monday night. And then we're going to start in on the laboratory test for compaction. So you got to do a lab test in compaction. And let's see if we can find it here. It's called the Proctor test. Okay. So this is a little mold. This is a rammer. And you basically pound that soil into that mold, and you're going to get the density of the soil, test the water content, and you have something known as a Proctor curve, where you plot density on the y-axis and percent moisture on the x-axis. And the way soil operates is that you do a number of samples at increasing soil content or increasing moisture contents, and the soil density goes up as the water percent increases until it gets to this point, and then the water starts to displace some of the soil and the density goes down. So this is the peak of this curve, of this red curve. This is the maximum dry density, and this is called the optimum moisture content. It's the moisture level for the maximum compaction. So it's optimum moisture. Optimum means best. It does not mean most. You want the highest density with the optimum or the best moisture content. And so that's what we're going to talk about on all next week. And we're probably going to go a good half hour, 45 minutes after surveying next week on this. So what I'll do is I'll do a separate recording on Monday night. So that one night that I made a mistake on accidentally shutting down the recording, I learned that I can do multiple recordings within one Zoom session. Okay. So I'll give you that. YouTube to watch for Monday night. So that pretty much wraps up things to go over what's due. Let's do that one last time. So soil A is not due tonight. It's due tomorrow night at 11:59 p.m. You have to give me the data by hand. You've got the Excel to use, so you know you're going to get the right answers, and you got to graph it. You do not have to classify the soil. That'll be next week. Soil B. Soil B is right here. I got to post this after we're done tonight. If you'll notice, the 1/4 inch sieve was not used. So there's no data that goes there. You just act as if it does not exist. Okay?
Same with the 2-inch sieve, right?
Correct. Yep, correct. So just for the sieves that you see, this is the data that you're going to generate. When you sum it up, you got to make sure that that is within 2% of your the total weight of the dry soil. Don't forget, this is the dry soil plus the dish. This is the weight of the dish. But when you put these two numbers in the Excel, it's going to immediately burp out this answer for you. That's the beauty of the Excel. Don't worry about this down at the bottom, only what I'm asking for. And then show all calcs for the number 4 and the number 200 sieve. On the graph, you're going to take the percent passing column number 7, and that is going to be, you'll rotate this for yourself, and that's going to be on the y-axis. This is column 7 versus the standard sieve openings or the sieve numbers. And you're going to create the soil curve, the gradation curve. Do not worry about all this because we have not gone over that. This information right here basically tells us whether it's a well-graded soil or a poorly graded or a gap-graded soil. That's what these numbers are. We just don't have time to go into that. When we bring you back for the soil labs, we'll actually talk more about that. But for now, that's what we want done. And again, soil B, Sunday night, 11:59 p.m. So don't hesitate to go through this Zoom step by step. Seen a fair number of hits on the Zooms, on the YouTubes. I think it could be more. Literally just stop and start it. Go through, and I know it's going to be brutal for you, and don't say anything to listen to my voice for that long. How the hell do you think I feel? I got to listen to myself all the time. But I think if you just start and stop on those YouTubes, you're going to be able to understand this more and more. You just got to take the time. So that's where we're at. Can't hurt to go over this again. Every once in a while, just gives you some good overview as to why we run a sieve test, why do we classify, and then eventually we'll get into why do we compact. And I think that's about it. So do you have any questions? Is this, well, you tell me, is this starting to make a little bit more sense? Well, I'm hearing it's, so you decide. So I think what we're going to do, I didn't get any questions. We're going to stop the recording for Thursday night heavy civil Zoom, April 30th. Again, as we always say, I don't think I said it in the beginning, but I always mean it. I hope all is well with you and your families. And we'll stop the recording.